Hey Ottawa, this is your Monday Market Snapshot for the Ottawa Real Estate Market for Monday, July 8th, 2024. My name is Annalie Rice. I'm a realtor here in Ottawa, Ontario, and every week I bring you the details of what's going on in the Ottawa real estate market. Given that this is the first update, the first real update for July, I've got the full data for June, the monthly charts and stats for June, and then of course the year to date. And I also have all the board stats, that's the CREA data, and my brokerage stuff. There's also a little bit of differences here this week just because last week's update was quite short and I didn't have all of the data for each area, so I'll explain that as we go through. Okay, so first off, let's look citywide. We can see that the active listings did come up slightly this week, up by 21. It was mostly in the condos. In fact, the detached and towns were lower this week than they were last week. For the sales was a big drop off, which was fully expected because of the long weekend. So only 186 sales, and it was across property types, but most notably, obviously, in the detached market. Here we have the inventory breakdown in visual format there. We see that the overall inventory, that's the black line, dropped off for the second week in a row. Last week it was because the active inventory had dropped. This week it's mainly because the sales dropped quite significantly this week. So the active inventory, that's the green line, actually increased this week. The conditional properties actually did increase as well this week slightly, and the sales were down quite significantly. So the next three charts are the inventory over the last 10 years. The red dots are for June inventory. So you can see this is for the detached inventory. You can see that the detached inventory for June 2024 was just below the May. You can see just slightly lower. But you can also see that the last time that we had this amount of inventory in June was back in 2018. This chart here is for the townhome inventory, so row homes, and you can see that you have to go all the way back to 2016 to have the level of inventory that we have currently for townhomes. And for this one, this is the condo inventory. You can see that, it's been very low since 2019, and we are significantly higher, but you have to go back to 2018, although the inventory in 2018 was quite a significant amount higher than what we have this year. Okay, so looking at the new listings that we had this week, we had 449 properties that were listed this week. 147 of those, which was 33%, were relisted properties, and 302 were new to the market. That was 67% of the properties that were listed. The ratios are a little bit off this week. We have quite a bit higher percentage being relisted, but that makes sense with the brand new month. A lot of properties expire at the end of the month, or people relist them because it was a fresh new month after a long weekend. I do expect that the number of active listings, or the new listings, will increase this week. It's not going to be climbing up to the spring levels and such, but I do think that we're going to start seeing people list more properties. The sales, obviously, as I mentioned in the previous slide, are going to rebound. Okay, so next up is the sales breakdown. I will warn you, there's a little bit of weirdness going on some of the data here, and I think it's just to do with the fact that we had the long weekend and, we've got the low number of listings and such. So we had 186 sales this week. 19% of those had no conditions, so that was jumping back up kind of to where we were before. Last week was sort of the abnormal week when we were sitting at 12%. And then we had only 19% of the sales this week sold at or above asking price. So you can see that's quite a significant drop from last week. And also it's been dropping there for the last several weeks. I do believe it'll probably come up a little bit. However, it should remain lower than what it was even throughout the spring and early summer there, because we've just got lots of inventory, and if the sales are slowing down, people have lots of choice and they should stop paying way over asking or at asking. You can start bargaining and negotiating and stuff on sales. Okay, so Next up is the sales within the 7 days, first 7 days on the market. Now, there was only 15 sales that were selling within the first 7 days on the market. That was 8% of the sales. And here's a little bit of the blip. 73% of those sold with no conditions. That seems high to me, and it was up by 39%, so like more than double percentage-wise. And 73% of those sold at or above asking price, which is also up a little bit from previous weeks. For sales within the first 30 days, it was only represented 51% of the sales this week, and that was 94 properties. That was down by 5%, and that number has been dropping over the weeks. 17% of those sold with no conditions, and 21% sold at or above asking price. So next up, we look at the details of at or above asking price. We had 36 homes that sold this week at or above asking price. Half of them, 18, sold at asking or up to 1% over asking price. 14 of them, which was 39%, which is a higher percentage than what we've typically seen, sold between 1 and 5% above asking price. And then only 4 homes, which was 11%, sold for more than 5% of the asking price. So the highest percentage this week was 30% over asking price. It was a detached bungalow. It was listed at just shy, like $100 short or $90 short of $400,000, and it sold for $521,000. It was out in Richmond, and they were holding offers. The highest dollar value over was $134,850 over asking, and it was a detached waterfront home in Manotick, listed for $899 and sold for $1,033,850. Again, it was holding offers. Of the 4 properties that did sell for more than 5% above asking price, 2 of them, those 2, had set offer dates. Okay, so next up, we'll be zooming into the different areas of the city, and then we'll get into the month-end stats. So don't go away yet. Now, I do want to comment that the last week's update did not include these the different regions of the city. So all of these stats are going to have the pluses and minuses of the changes are all for the last 2 weeks. It doesn't represent last week's changes. Okay, so first off, we have the central urban region. We can see that over the last 2 weeks there, we have a drop in the number of active listings across property types and a drop in sales, which is totally understandable. Pretty significant in the number of detached and condos drop of sales. And for Canada and Stittsville, we can see that the number of detached actually didn't change over the last 2 weeks. The townhomes and condos, just slight decrease in the number of active listings. And the sales were down slightly for detached in towns and up slightly for condos. And I guess that makes sense for the detached in towns since, the long weekend is mostly, people traveling, end of school and such for families with kids, and they'd be the most affected by that. In Barrhaven and Riverside South, we see a drop in active listings across property types, but though not a huge drop. And for the number of sales, it was slightly up for detached and slightly down for towns and condos. And in Orleans, we see that the active inventory increased for both detached and condos and was down slightly for townhomes. And the number of sales were down for detached in towns, just up 1 for condos. Okay, so this is the full data for the residential detached market, the full data for the residential townhomes, and the full data for the condominiums. It's been a few months since I've included this chart and my brokerage data, but this is the monthly snapshot for June 2024. Okay, so this is my brokerage data, which is pulled from the Ottawa Real Estate Board. Full data, which includes all of the areas, rural and urban, for the City of Ottawa and the surrounding areas. And so we see that the June sales were up for residential and down quite significantly for condos. And the average sale price for residential was up just slightly, and then down just slightly for condos. Okay, and this is the year-to-date data, again, for that larger area, including all the rural areas. We can see the residential is, the number of sales is up 6% from year-to-date, as compared to 2023, and the average sale price is up just slightly, just over 1%. For condos, the number of sales is up just slightly, just almost 1%, and the average sale price is up 1.5%. Okay, and so this is the Ottawa Real Estate Board stats, which is taken from the Canadian Real Estate Association. They pull the stats on the first day of the month. So this is, if you're looking to understand why all these numbers are different, you can go back to in March. I did have a presentation that explained the data and where they all come from and how they're all different. But this is the Canadian Real Estate Association. This will match with what you see in the news headlines. So sales for the Ottawa Real Estate Board were 1,439 units, which was up just slightly from June 2023. But it is down 7.5% from the 5-year average and down 13.2% from the 10-year average, so down significantly. The prices are the MLS Home Price Index benchmark prices. And again, go back to that March presentation that explains what benchmark prices are. It is not the same as what I share weekly or monthly. So the composite all homes was down actually they were all down slightly. So down 0.5 year on year, single family homes down just like 0.2, townhomes rose down 1.6 year on year, and apartment, which would be apartment condos, down 1.7. Okay, and this is the Ottawa Real Estate Board's market update, or sort of summary sheet for June. It gives a little bit of extra information with the number of active listings, and that would be 3585, new listings 2469, and then the days on market 18. Again, it repeats the benchmark prices and the number of properties sold. Okay, so this is back to my data, which is the City of Ottawa boundaries, and then I break it out here into the month-to-month average sale prices, and different property types. So detached, you can see that it was a 0.8% drop, so just very slight drop. Semi-detached saw quite a large drop, but again, I say this every month, is that semi-detached properties vary quite significantly, and it really depends on which properties are selling. You could have older semis versus the brand new ones, or the luxury ones down in Westboro kind of area. So a big drop of 5.7%. Freehold towns, which there's obviously lots of, they just dropped to $1,000, so 0.2%. And condo row townhomes saw quite a drop there, 8.7%. But I believe last month we can see that it climbed quite a bit there. And condo apartments also saw quite a drop. Again, condos, very, very much depends on which ones sell. And, we can have like luxury ones. I think last month in May, there was some really big luxury condos that had sold, which had pulled that average up quite significantly. And so the next 4 charts are graphic forms for the same kind of data. There you can see the year on year if you look at the sort of little clusters, but you can also see month on month. So you can see that for June, we're below the 2023 and 2022, obviously, and just down slightly for month on month. And so this is for the semi-detached, and you can see that the black line is significantly below what it was last year. So year on year, it looks like quite significantly lower, and even month on month. But, there's a lot more volatility. The bars are all over the place in different months. In contrast to that, you can see that the townhomes here, they're very steady for the most part. The only abnormal thing was 2022 prices, where you can see that those numbers were up quite high. But we've been fairly steady, like the prices are very steady from 2023, 2024, and even 2021 for the last several months. They've been very steady. And finally, for condominiums, this is all condominiums. I don't break it out into rows or apartments, but all condominiums. And you can see that the prices are very steady, but up slightly from, June 2021, 22, and it's even just slightly below what it was in 2023. You can see that last month, that was in the May one, that was a big spike and it had very high numbers there. So when we're seeing those negatives month on month, is basing it off of like a spike from last month. Okay, so the next number of charts are going to be sort of my monthly summary ones. This one sort of gives us the close price to the original list price. It tells you just generally how close to the asking price sales are happening. So you can see that in all three detached towns and condos, they dropped. So we're, sales are happening a little bit further away from their asking price. We're at 98.1 for detached, 98.7 for towns, and 97.9 for condos. And for the average days to sell, just slight increases for detached and condos, and townhomes actually dropped by a day. And for monthly sales, this shows us the monthly sales over the last 10 years. You can see the black line is 2024, and according to my stats, we had slightly fewer sales in the City of Ottawa boundaries than we did last year, just by a few, less than 10 or so. The dark blue is there as 2023, but you can see that we are well below the average of any of those last 10 years, or 11 years goes back to 2013. The only year that was lower than this year was 2022, which was sort of, when everything was kind of dropping off quite significantly. And finally, the last thing we'll talk about is the months of inventory. So the months of inventory is how many months it would take to sell all of the current inventory at the current sales rate if no more properties came on the market. So with high inventory and fairly low sales, that's why we're starting to see those months of inventory climbing. We're sitting at 2.8 for detached, 1.7 for towns, and 2.7 for condominium, which I'm going to admit, and you're going to see on the next slide, is actually still pretty low considering how much inventory we have. So this is the months of inventory. This is all property types all put in together, and you can see that we're kind of sitting at like 2.5-ish maybe months of inventory. And according to the definitions, that still is a seller's market. But I think if you ask buyers and sellers right now, most people would say that we're very balanced. There are obviously homes that are selling very quickly obviously, I say it every single week, how many houses are selling, within 7 days with no conditions, above asking, at or above asking. But it really is a minority of the properties in most cases. And so while some houses are doing that, a lot of houses are just sitting on the market. And so for those houses, it really is a balanced market, or even a chance for a buyer's market, where buyers have a lot more leverage in trying to pick the house that they want and maybe negotiate that price down a bit. Okay, so long update today, and I apologize for if the video seemed a little bit off. The program I use, they changed how you record them, and I have to stop each and every slide has to be a different video instead of being able to sort of run through them. So I hope it wasn't too distracting, or if people noticed. If you have any questions or have any suggestions, please put a comment or get in touch. And I hope you have a fantastic week or enjoying your beginning of the summer, or summer vacation if you're on vacation. Have a great week.